I'm Chase Sr., and coming up on today's San Francisco 49ers Report, we have a new Brandon Aiyuk trade update. And are the 49ers going to target quarterback Kirk Cousins in NFL free agency? Don't start ripping me in the comment section. Just wait until we talk about it, because I am going to defend Brock Purdy, who I think is the franchise guy for this football team. As for the latest on Brandon Aiyuk, in case you just have been so heartbroken after that Super Bowl 58 loss to Kansas City, there's a possibility that Aiyuk gets dealt. Why is that? Well, 2024 is going to be the final year of Aiyuk's contract after San Francisco exercised the fifth-year option because he was a first-round pick, 25th overall back in 2020. He is due, because of that fifth-year option kicking in, $14 million guaranteed if he just plays out the remainder of his deal. That could change if the Niners do give him the contract extension that he deserves and wants and is seeking. Aiyuk is coming off a career year, so Spotrac estimating that Aiyuk's new deal is going to pay him about $23 million per year. I think the starting asking price a couple of months ago was $20 million on an average annual value basis, but because Aiyuk had a career season this year, really solidified himself as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, that asking price has gone up. As for why a Brandon Aiyuk trade would happen, a lot of you are probably watching this saying the Niners took him in the first round, former JUCO product. They saw something special in him at Arizona State. They've invested so much time in developing him. A lot of us have seen how Kyle Shanahan was so pumped up on draft night in 2020 after the Niners got their guy. All those things are true. But this Niners roster is getting increasingly expensive. They're not going to be able to pay and afford everybody. So if the Niners don't want to pay Brandon Aiyuk, or if the Niners are blown away by a trade offer from another team in which they're offering San Francisco a first-round pick, they could look to trade him and address a position like right tackle, or get a Brandon Aiyuk replacement in the first round, because that would become a massive need, and you're paying that wide receiver a fraction of the price as compared to either $14 million in year 5 for Aiyuk, or about $23 million per year for Brandon Aiyuk. So financially, that makes sense. And then lastly, I think the only reason Aiyuk does get traded is if he wants out, where he wants wide receiver 1 money and wide receiver 1 targets, and the Niners are like, we can't afford that, and we can't promise you those targets. We'll send you somewhere else, and we can get a first-rounder back. Aiyuk in 2023 was spectacular, and I feel really good about my evaluation of Aiyuk, because 2 years ago I was saying I think he's better than CD Lamb. I think he has the potential because of the route running, footwork, vertical speed, him being elusive, being able to pick up yards after the catch, to be a top 10 wideout in the game, and he's turned into that. And this year we really saw it with some of these deep dive numbers that the casuals never look at. Yards per catch, number 2. Yards per target, number 2. Pro Football Focus wide receiver grade, he was only behind Tyreek Hill. EPA for all wide receivers, number 2. Receiving yards, number 7. And what I love about Aiyuk, he was the number 1 highest graded run-blocking wide receiver in the NFL. And you know Kyle Shanahan loves that effort, loves him being gritty, loves him being tough, and he really exemplifies what the Niners want in their football players. Developmental story, ended up being an elite player, and he cares and he tries hard and he does what we ask him to do. And you take a gander at what Aiyuk's been able to accomplish his first 4 years in the NFL, he's literally gotten better and better every single season. From a production standpoint, mostly a touchdown standpoint, but a yard standpoint. And what's so impressive about what he did in 2023, Christian McCaffrey had more than 2,000 all-purpose yards. Deebo Samuel had more than 1,000 all-purpose yards. George Kittle had a 1,000-yard season for the first time since 2019. Juwan Jennings got some targets. Yet Aiyuk was 7th in receiving yards in a run-heavy system with 1,342. But he also developed into a great long ball threat for Brock Purdy. That's one of the reasons why I don't want to see Aiyuk go anywhere, because that kinship with Purdy is really important as we project forward. And there's no question about this right now. Brandon Aiyuk, ladies and gentlemen, is the best wide receiver on the San Francisco 49ers. But as far as paying him, if the asking price starts at $23 million per year, are the Niners looking at him as a true number one wideout across the entire NFL? Would you put him in the category with Justin Jefferson? Would you put him in the same category as a Jamar Chase, as a Devontae Adams, as a Cooper Kupp? Because to me, he might project more so as like a 1B as compared to being that true wide receiver 1. But there's also this part of the conversation from a negotiating standpoint from Aiyuk and his camp. They could make the argument at the negotiating table that with wide receiver 1 targets, because Aiyuk isn't getting the 100 targets that a Jamar Chase gets or a Justin Jefferson gets when he's healthy, Aiyuk could put up stupid numbers as a featured target. Now, what is the new Brandon Aiyuk trade update? Let's throw it to Matt Miller, NFL draft expert, obviously has some good feelers across the NFL. He said, man, I think a Brandon Aiyuk trade is a possibility. I don't want to be the guy who says Brandon Aiyuk gets traded, but there's a lot of smoke there right now. So I at least think it's possible, if not probable. We've seen it before, with A.J. Brown, players like that. So I do think there's at least a possibility. And if so, wide receiver becomes the biggest need for that team in the NFL draft. And I would agree, where if you don't go right tackle or right guard at 31, you might have to go wide receiver or even trade up for a good wide receiver like Brian Thomas out of LSU, who has a little Aiyuk in his game. The A.J. Brown trade is something good to look at, because I do think this is how you can gauge what the asking price could be for Aiyuk. The Eagles traded away 18th overall and 101 overall for A.J. Brown. And the Eagles got A.J. Brown, and then they signed him and extended him to a 4-year, $100 million contract, giving him $25 million per year. Is Aiyuk on par with A.J. Brown when A.J. Brown is humming? You might slightly lean with A.J. Brown, who's in that conversation with the Justin Jeffersons and the Jamar Chase. But with the wide receiver market exploding, Aiyuk with another team, they might give up a first rounder and give him $25 million per year like A.J. Brown. And is that trade too good for the Niners to turn down? Something to think about. I love having thought-provoking conversations right here on the Niners Report. With that, what would you do? Would you trade Aiyuk for a first-round pick if it's very similar to that A.J. Brown deal? D for deal, N for no deal. Sound off with what you think and what you feel down in the comment section. The offseason is here, but if you want to rep the San Francisco 49ers and you want to support the Niners Report, SAN-FRAN-CISCO. Shirts available right now. Chatsports.com/SF. We've sent these across the Atlantic Ocean to Ireland and England. We've sent these across the Pacific Ocean to people in Australia. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. Shout out to Dave Towers as well as my Aussie family, which is Googling the Niners in Australia last week, my dad was telling me. And I popped up immediately. And they were like, that's Chase. And I'm like, good day, mate. I'm here. Chatsports.com/SF. That link is down below in the comment section and in the description of this video. Awesome shirts. You support the show. We obviously appreciate that as always. Next up, could the Niners be a landing spot for Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins? San Francisco is listed as one of the top destinations for the free agent to be. This coming from Sports Illustrated here. The Niners will probably make a run at Kirk Cousins, who would be an upgrade over Purdy if he makes a full recovery from his torn Achilles injury. It also would not hurt for the Niners to sign Cousins and have him compete with the young star for the job. But it's also tough seeing Cousins reuniting with Kyle Shanahan, who coached him in Washington without promising the veteran that he would be the starter. There's also the obstacle of creating enough cap space for Cousins, with the Niners currently being $12.3 million over the salary cap. It would not be surprising if the Niners chase him, but they might be better off with Purdy, who now has plenty of postseason experience, and prioritizing the contract extension of wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. The biggest thing that's laughable about that, if the Niners, in some crazy world, signed Kirk Cousins, it wouldn't be to have a quarterback controversy and quarterback competition between him and Brock Purdy. That's thought number one. Number two, Brock Purdy is one of the best value deals in the NFL. He led a team to the Super Bowl with the historic offense, making less than $1 million per year. And then at number three, the Brock Purdy slander continues to be crazy. And then at number four, are we really sure that Kirk Cousins is better than Brock Purdy? When you factor in play, age, postseason success, but overall production. Kirk is 1-4 in his playoff career. He has consistently cratered when the pressure cooker gets hot. And Brock Purdy, in 2 years, this past year was his first full year as a starter, is already 4-2 in his playoff career. And look at what Purdy did in his first full campaign as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Number 3 in passing touchdowns. Number 1 in yards per attempt. Number 1 in deep ball completion percentage. Number 4 when pressured. Red zone completion rate number 2. True passer rating number 1. QBR number 1. EPA atop all quarterbacks number 1. Yet, everybody wants to tell me that he was lifted up by his supporting cast. His receiver target separation was 14th in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes was number 1. Deep ball catchable rate percentage, number 1. So Brock Purdy, deep ball completion rate number 1, and then deep ball catchable rate also number 1. I thought he couldn't throw the deep ball. I thought he had a noodle arm. I thought that he was elevated by the system and his weapons. All of those narratives have been debunked. So let me ask this question again, and feel free to argue with others down in the comments section. Be polite, of course. You can rip me if you want. I don't care. Are we sure that Kirk is better than Brock Purdy? Because I also thought that Purdy played pretty well in the Super Bowl, considering the circumstances. Play calling let him down. The Niners shooting themselves in the foot let him down. I thought the game management wasn't good. I don't know if Kyle Shanahan did him any favors. Deebo Samuel had a couple of drops. The defense late collapsed a little bit. And you look at what Cousins did in 8 games played in 2023 before the Achilles tear. Yeah, he was really good. But numbers are never the issue with Kirk Cousins. It's the empty numbers that are the issue for me. Completed almost 70% of his passes, 18 touchdowns, 5 picks. QBR of 62.7, not to the likes of Brock Purdy. And over the last 4 years, again, the issue with Cousins is never the production. It's what is he going to be able to do when the lights are shining the brightest in the postseason. And I know that Kyle Shanahan would be able to elevate Kirk Cousins like he did in Washington. And Shanahan really put Cousins on a track where he could land that good deal from the Redskins at the time, and as well as the Minnesota Vikings. And Cousins has been a very durable player throughout his career up until this past year, and productive player. He goes to your organization, you are going to be set in stone for double-digit wins. It's not what I care about. Niners have been able to do that. I love what we've seen from Brock Purdy. Timing, accuracy, anticipation, leadership skills. He's a better athlete and maneuvers around the pocket, make plays happen out of structure better than Kirk Cousins. So I'm typing BP for Brock Purdy, and he's not going to be as expensive as Kirk Cousins either. So let me know which quarterback you would rather have. As always, we appreciate you for watching, and we hope that you were informed, entertained, and we brought you some insightful content here on the show because that's what we aim to do every single day, year round.